Joining us now, DMK Minister PTR Palanivel Thiagarajan from Madurai city itself. So, sir, you are from Madurai, representing Madurai Central Constituency. So, there are ongoing controversies over Thiruparukundram Deepam. As a citizen, do you want Thiruparukundram Deepam to light up on the top of the hill?
Look, many citizens can have many desires. So, I will say two ways. The first is, it is not my department. It is not my direct responsibility. And normally, the rule in the government is that ministers should stick to their own portfolios. When I was finance minister, I made an exception in some cases, and sometimes the consequences are not good. As a citizen, I'll start with the fact that I have some special affection and connection to Murugan temples in general, and this particular one. As you may know, from my family's history, from the Arupadai Vidugal, from Palani. In fact, my grandfather almost rediscovered the ruins of Palamudur Chola and rebuilt it from scratch. And in my father's time, we expanded that effort. Works in Tiruchendur. Even past the Arupadai Vidugal in Vadapalani, 3 times in the course of his lifetime, my grandfather was instrumental in doing the Kodamolukku and the Tirupani. So in that sense, I would say, in broad terms, my name is Palanivel Thiagarajan, my sons are Palani and Vel. So we have long followership of Lord Muruga. And by pure coincidence, last year I was actually at the Kartikeya Deepam. Because my cousin is the head of my community is called Tondai Mandala Mudaliyar. Tondai Mandala Mudaliyar have a mandapam there, donated by some members of my community, my relatives. And there is a Kalyana Mandapam there. It's right next to the temple. If you go to the temple entrance, the next plot. And so my cousin had been keeping on inviting me for many years. Deepa on the parent. So last year I was there and I sat on the Mottamadi, the terrace of the mandapam, and watched the Deepam lit at the, as it has been for 100 years, lit at the Uchipilayar Koil near the temple. Now the question is, normally on court judgments, it is not appropriate to comment as an elected official. In fact, the Constitution strictly allows within the assembly or the parliament for there to be discussions on matters that are subjudice, but it is the norm and practice by the speakers that they don't allow such discussion. So in that sense, I don't want to get into this particular judgment, and it would not be appropriate. I will just say that as a Murugan Bhaktar, as a local person, as somebody who has this connection to this particular temple and this Deepam, as I told you, I have tried to inquire to the best of my ability what has been happening and what are the issues. And in that sense, I must say I'm a little disappointed that the issue has become politicized beyond the natural sentiments of certainly the devotees and the people in Thiruparukundram itself. Now, since I can't talk about the actual case and the judgment, I'll talk broadly. As you may know, I used to be Minister for Finance and a bunch of other portfolios, including personnel, administrative reforms, which we renamed HRM. And it was my experience over the 2 years that sometimes, not always, but sometimes court judgments were not easily enactable for many reasons. Sometimes they extended into the role of legislature by asking for the allocation of funds, which is not within either the executive or the judiciary. It has to come from the assembly. Sometimes they asked for things to be done that were just not doable. I remember one famous case, roster case, where the original judgment had been that you should go back and correct 15 years of seniority and promotion and compensation, all that. It would have just, the system was not capable of executing that. In other cases, I've been in many judgments, in many discussions, because as I've said on the floor of the assembly, I say it here, the line between the judiciary, the executive and the legislature is not as clear as it should be. Sometimes there's kind of blurring of the lines. So in particular, in this case, my concern is that while I have no comment, or it's not appropriate for me to talk about the judgment, there can be difficulty sometimes in implementing a judgment. Right? So, for example, if I was reminded of a case by a senior lawyer in the Supreme Court, wherein I think it was Himachal Pradesh, a High Court judge had said, the state shall lay roads in these places to these villages. Now, that cannot be implemented because unless the legislature approves the money, the executive doesn't have the right to spend that money on those roads and not other roads. That choice is the legislature's. The same way, in this case, I think if the judgment was that you shall provide support, and this is my best understanding now from the collector and the commissioner and everybody I've inquired, more in my personal capacity. If the judgment is that you shall provide or you shall do what the court says, that is easier to adhere to judgment. It's a direct order to a government employee, which is normally the course of writ petitions. And the outcome of the writ petition will be that you should do what the court says. It's a constitutional republic. Everybody follows the law. When the ruling comes, they do. For whatever reason, this went past that. And it came to a point where the judgment called for the petitioner himself plus 10 associates to be provided protections to go up somewhere and do something. Sadly, the timing in both days that this was delivered has been a problem. That is to say, in the first instance, by the time the petitioner and the 10 people arrived at the spot to go through with the judgment's execution, there had already been a mass gathering, disruption of social order, of public order, damage to public property, mass aggregation of people in the system. And I don't know if you actually know the design of the hill, but the way the hill is, if this is the main temple, the steps start at a different place called the Palanivel temple. And as you know, to go up to the Dibatun, you have to go past, almost past the Dargah, but you have to go past the Nellitop, which is the Dargah's property, then go and almost by the side of the Dargah into the thing. So, and it's there's no lighting there, electric light there. It's a dark hill. It's not a lit pathway. So I think in theory, if it is one person plus 10 persons plus police protection, it is a doable order to some extent, enforceable, executable order to some extent, because even without light, if planned for ahead of time before it gets dark, it is doable. But if already the hill and the surroundings and the Palanivel temple and the main temple are besieged by a mob, which is quite aggressive, as I saw in the video. I'm sure you have seen the videos as well. And this is at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, before the arrival of the petitioner by 7:30 p.m. Then, of course, it is not out of logic that the police and the district administration have to act in a way that protects public order. What the main responsibility is to protect public order, to prevent the deterioration of law and order into a kind of problematic situation, and to prevent damage to public property, particularly if it's religious property. So if you allowed a mob actually up the steps, you were just inciting trouble. It was just asking for trouble, right? Anything could have happened. So I think for the proper process that was followed, as best I understand, again, I'm not the guy who gave the order and I'm not the person in the loop, but as best I can understand now from the collection of information, upon the intelligence that there was likely to be trouble, there was police strength. Upon the fact that by 5 p.m., even though the Deepam was set for 6 p.m., there was already, and if you were there, you would already notice there was already large numbers of very aggressive people and a lot of problems happening. Then upon the information sent by the Commissioner of Police through the proper channels, the Sub-District Magistrate, who is the RDO, to the Collector, who is the Executive Magistrate, he has promulgated a 144 order, or under BNS it's something else, 163 or something, that you must not have congregation of people here. And then an hour and a half after that order, these 10 people have come, but there is still, the crowd has not dispersed, it is a problem. So the first day, that was the problem in executing the order. It was not that there was a issue. Maybe you could have said that they should have done something before 6 o'clock. That's it. But then the crowd started at what time? You were there. What time was the crowd there?
From 4 itself.
5 o'clock itself. It was a situation that was ripe for problems. Now you fast forward to the next day. So the bench has passed an order. Of course, we have to follow the law. They have said we will not stop it and you can go ahead. Then the judges passed an order. Again, the problem is, by the time the judge's order is passed, almost as if in anticipation of this order, people who are extraneous to this Deepam, right? I myself say, though I have this long legacy with the Murugan temples, though there's a Tondai Mandalam Molayar Mandapam, though my cousin has been the head trustee for many years, I myself found the opportunity only to go last year. Now, the question I'm asking is, where is politics in any of this? You know, how many times, listen, people who are going to make trouble will make trouble. But I ask people like my good friend and very civilized MLA and BJP party leader of Tamil Nadu, Thiruparukundram Nagendran, how many times he has come to see the Deepam before? In what way is it conducive to bring a political color into an event that is already quite full of tension? So again, the problem, as best I can tell yesterday, is that before the order of the court was to be executed by the 1+10 people, and on the night where the Girivelam was happening, which is already, as you know, quite a big crowd. Again, I hope you were there yesterday.
Yes.
Then, if you suddenly have lots of political players come, and they are not coming as Murugan Bhaktas, they are not shouting, they are not coming and shouting Vetrivel Muruganuka Arohara, right? They are shouting some Bharat Mata ki Jai, here's a BJP flag. They are politicizing the event and coming with a big crowd. Obviously, the police's job is to maintain law and order. Again, I say, going up the hill is not a trivial thing. In fact, I'll go one step further as an operational guy. Let us say you want to go and light a Deepam over there. Is it like you and me lighting a lamp here? I just opened a building and lit a Kuttu Velakku. 2 seconds. To light a Deepam up on the hill that is visible down here, you require a lot of paraphernalia, right? You have to carry bundles of wood, you have to carry the ghee, you have to carry the water to wash the place, you have to carry the kindling to make it actually catch. This is not a small operation, right? If the HRNC is doing it, it's a different thing. HRNC has done it years and years and years and can do it. But if a petitioner plus 10 people, and none of these petitioners or 10 people are local people, they are from outside. I'm not saying that reduces their right. I'm saying that reduces their familiarity with the place. Then they have to climb up the hill in the dark. Then they have to go past the Dargah property. Then they have to do it with police protection. It's doable if the rest of the area is perfectly calm and there is no crowd. Once you start having lots of people there and aggressive chanting and political flags and political leadership there who's getting involved in the melee, obviously it becomes a tense situation. So my own view is that maybe the order would have been easier implemented or quickly implemented had there not been all of this kind of problem on the ground, which I only saw on TV, but you were there physically, you saw it.
But the very first day when the order came out saying that the HRNC department or temple administration should light the lamp on the top of the hill, but the temple administration failed to do right, and then only they filed the contempt of court, and the drama started.
What the court has done and what the government has done, again I say, I'm not the minister for HRNC. I have seen some evidence that attempts were made at least to start the process on the top of the hill, circulating widely. I don't know the actual situation on that day, but I'm saying I'm just hypothesizing. If the order is to do something at 6 p.m., and I think the order was very explicit, let's be very clear. My understanding is the order was on
the two places. It has mentioned 2 places.
And there.
Yes, yes.
So this part I think was easier done because it's the tradition for 100 years. That part, at least for the 100 years that we know, has never been done before. So it may have required some more planning or execution on behalf. As I say, lighting a flame is not. It's not like you and me taking a matchbox, right? It's actually a
But those
complicated
things
thing.
were not mentioned on behalf of temple administration on the court. They just said they don't want to do that.
That I don't know. I don't know what they said. I'm not justifying anything. I'm saying that the court is seized of the matter. I am not going to get into the legal points. Okay. Whoever should have followed the law should have followed the law. I completely agree that in a constitutional republic, you have to follow the court orders, and if they are enforceable or implementable, they should be implemented. I am saying that as far as the actual implementation of the second order, which is 1+10, 1+10, just logic says it can only be implemented if it is perfectly calm and still. If there is the risk of a bunch of people rushing up a dark hill that goes through the property of the Dargah, then it would be very irresponsible indeed to allow that to happen. So I am only covering that aspect. Okay. What the matter is, put another way, I am extremely happy that both the original case appeal as well as the contempt appeal have been now posted for early next week,
Yes.
so that the communal tensions die down, right?
Okay. Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, where the say again, the great thing about belief and faith is very individual. To me, I had the great satisfaction of watching the Deepam last time when it was lit at the Uchipulayar Mandapam outside the temple. I would be equally happy if it was lit somewhere else, so I would be happy if it was lit in both. That happens to be me. Maybe some fellow's sentiment is different than mine. It's a free country, you're all allowed your own sentiments. That's the point of religious freedom. We all have our own way of believing. My point is not where it is lit or where it is not lit. My point is, if it is politicized and there is a crowd and there are party flags and there are chantings that are unrelated to Lord Muruga or the lighting of the flame, the odds of actually implementing an order go down dramatically. That's just the normal maintenance of law and order responsibility and the prevention of damage to public property, particularly sensitive property. That is the responsibility of the government. That's where I think all of us have to de-escalate this point. Whatever the law says, whatever the court says, the court will say and we will do, I think. We have no other choice. We have not disobeyed court orders willfully. As I have said, I personally have come across court orders that were not implemented. We have had to go and ask them to change it or modify it or make it implementable. And the court's been reasonable. Right? This is a normal give and take in a democracy. I wish it was clearer. I wish the lines were black and white. It's not. But to bring a political color into this and to go beyond the judicial issues is my concern. The judicial issues, I don't have standing. The court will
Very
decide.
first point, you clearly mentioned how it is hard to implement certain things legislative for following the judiciary order. Is that a worrying trend, judiciary was legislature across India?
Look, I don't want to generalize. I'm just saying my personal experience. And my personal experience and actual instances I have read. Usually there are 3 or 4 problems. If it requires the appropriation of monies, that cannot be done even by the executive. It can only be done by the legislature. Right? If it requires the execution of an outcome that is not physically viable, so they say, make sure there are no floods in this place. Maybe that requires 10 years of work. I can't make it happen in 1 year. Right? If there is, I remember an order where I said, the government shall implement an underground drainage scheme for this area of Chennai at this cost. That is not within the realm of possibility. I can't make that decision. The legislature has to allocate the money. As I told you, a senior lawyer in High Court, in Supreme Court told me that a case went to the Supreme Court where in some other northern state, certain High Court had said implement those, create roads to these villages in these. So I don't think it's a new issue. I think in a democracy you'll have this a bit of give and take here and there. I think that technology will be a great solver for a lot of these problems. This is not the first, it will not be the last. But my own, if I had to make a very nuanced view, if the order was, you HRNCE shall do X, and HRNCE does not do X, that is a black and white issue that can be easily, adjudicated instantaneously. If the issue is that, though it is a writ against the government, the relief is for an individual to do ABC on public property. By definition, to me, just by logic, that is harder to ensure successful execution as opposed to telling the government to do something on government property. That's all I'm saying. And in this case, it's complicated by the fact that it's up on the hill, there's no lights, these are not people who are local, and there's a mob there that doesn't seem to be controlled, that's all.
But BJP blames DMK is doing appeasement politics ahead of 2026 election.
My point is, anybody can say anything. My point is maintenance of law and order the responsibility of the government or not? Of course it is. Was there a crowd well before the pronouncement of the contempt order? Of course there was. You were there. Was there a risk of violence and aggressive outcomes? Yes. So you have to maintain. I'll say slightly differently. What I was disappointed, again, I'm not so worried about the behavior of certain people who have, I don't want to name names, but certain people have a history of only creating tension and problems and so forth, so I want to get into that. But my good friend, Honorable Member of the Legislative Assembly, Nainar Nagendra, is a responsible politician. He has been in multiple parties, he has been minister before, he has been in many senior roles. The 2 things I am disappointed is, why was he at the site yesterday when there was already tension in the place? Surely his presence was not reducing the tension. The second thing I have the concern about is I heard him on a YouTube, not directly, where he was saying that the DMK is an anti-Hindu, kind of Hindu sentiment party. My question is, which party in politics will go out of its way to be anti the sentiments of the majority? Surely self-preservation, if nothing else. I happen to be a practicing Hindu. That's a different story. But surely self-preservation of any, rational mind will say that no party should go out of their way to antagonize the majority community. Why should we? I mean, are we like stupid? I don't understand. So this notion that he can say things like it's an anti-Hindu party or an anti-Hindu government of all things, that is a bit worrying to me.
Do you think Saffron Party got some sort of support in Madurai following this Thiruparukundram issue?
Look, I'm not doing polling. In my own view, this has been a calm, multicultural, multi-religious place of great harmony and social kind of camaraderie. We have had very few religion-related problems in terms of, disturbance of the peace. I think it says something about our culture. For example, my native village is also a village where there is a large Muslim population. It's called Thiruparukundram in Theni district. There, for example, there's one of the famous colleges called the Kartrautar College, Haji Kartrautar College. Actually, the initiative to start the college and the original allocation of land was given to my family, who are Hindus and long-standing. For whatever reason at that time, we couldn't quite get the organization of it together. So we asked our family friends and they started it. That's the history of this place. Whether the history of the place can be changed that quickly by instigation, time will tell.
Thank you for your time, sir. Thank you so much for your time. So that was DMK Minister PTR Palanivel Thiagarajan for NDTV, Vijay Gopal Muralidharan with camera person Dilip.